Buonasera, benvenuti nel Museo del Vicino Oriente, Egitto e Mediterraneo. È un'occasione molto bella, molto particolare questa sera, perché abbiamo il dottor Ahmad Asadi dalla Repubblica Islamica dell'Iran e da Shiraz, è un professore dell'università e ha veramente un tenure track straordinario con moltissime pubblicazioni. È ovviamente assistant professor di Iranian Archaeology. Dal 2002, since 2002, is involved also with leading roles in numerous excavation projects as Persepolis Channels Excavations, Achemenian Tange Hamadan, Pasargade, Istachen, ovviamente, che è la missione che abbiamo celebrato ieri. It is the expedition that we have celebrated yesterday because of the publication of the excavations report. And in the Bastak Valley and Pulvar River valleys in the past. He is author of more than 30 up to 38 refereed articles in scientific journals. So really a skilled scholar and someone who can cut the edge concerning the topic, which is really very interesting. It is water management in antiquities. Perhaps this can even give suggestion to people living nowadays how to deal with this basic resource. So I just to thank you for being here, for having been also our guest as professor in Sapienza University for 2 months. And now I will let you to give your talk. And so I move aside, and you will have someone helping you for the touch. So have your place and a nice talk. Wow.
First of all, hello everybody. I would like to thank you for coming to this presentation. And I would like to have a special thanks of Professor Nidro and Christoph Maria Victoria Fontana for giving this opportunity for presenting this speech. Also, in advance, I appreciate my friends Andrea for helping me for changing these slides. Today, I will deal with the recent archaeological activities I carried out on the underground waterways of Persepolis and its southern area. I hope that most of the important aspects of this issue could be presented within this lecture. The main structures characterizing the site of Persepolis, including the Thrace and most of its palaces, were built between 518 and 485 BCE during the reign of Darius the Great and his son and successor Xerxes. After several excavations and researches, the building of Persepolis are almost well known to us today. Nevertheless, some major structures of the Thrace have not been fully explored until 2007. The most important acquisition since then is the network of underground waterways of Persepolis. The underground waterways of Persepolis are considered as a major part of the architecture and infrastructure of the site. Activities regarding the construction of these channels began simultaneously with preparing the Thrace and founding the building upon it. It is possible that the construction of their main courses and major parts was finished before the conclusion of the construction of the earliest palaces. The plan of the underground waterways of Persepolis Thrace shows a relatively complex network of several key waterways as well as smaller channels covering the entire surface of the Thrace and making possible the outflow of rainwater from Persepolis complex. Ernest Hertzfeld and Eric Schmidt, archaeologists of the Oriental Institute of Chicago University, from 1932 to 1939, 1932 to 1939, excavated the main parts of the channels. In the following decades, Ali Sami, Iranian director of Persepolis, continued the works. Finally, between 2001 and 2004, and under the supervision of Ali Reza Askari Chavarli, another Iranian archaeologist, the main outlet of the channels were discovered in the southeast corner of the terrace. The last excavation carried out in the channels conducted by myself in 2012 and 2014 provided substantial data about the extension and architecture system of waterways in an area located in the south of Persepolis Terrace and also in the so-called building of Treasury. The most important role of the excavation conducted in the 2012 season was to open up the outflow road of surface waters of Persepolis complex from its underground waterways, because this played a vital role in the conservation of the terrace structure. Before the new excavations, heavy rains, especially in the winter and autumn seasons, had filled the channels and then the interior of the palaces, which caused many problems and serious damages to the building, as you see here. The key factor blocking the main exit course of the channels was the debris produced because of Schmidt and Hertzfeld excavations. This had been accumulated during the years 1932 until 1939 on the southern side of the terrace. Today, a huge amount of debris covered half of the southern side of the terrace, from facing Mer Mountain as far as the vicinity of the southern wall inscription of Darius the Great. The second major goal of the 2012 season research was to gather information about the condition of the southern area of Persepolis Terrace during the Achaemenid period, and to identify the course of water flow after coming out of the waterways outlet, and to find out if any structure related to them existed. This was of utmost importance for a better identification of Persepolis Terrace and circumstances governing its surrounding area. During the 2012 season, a long trench was excavated with a length of nearly 100 meters and extending from the channel's outlet southward as far as the extreme end of the area, which debris produced by previous Persepolis excavations was piled up. As mentioned before, the trench aimed at opening up an emergency course for the draining of rainwater gathered inside the underground waterways. As a result of this operation, which lasted more than 3 months, several structures were identified within the limits of the trench. From these, traces of 4 waterways, numbered from 1 to 4 based on their location in the trench, were the most important finds. Of them, 1 was used as a drain, and the others, as we will see, were apparently built for transferring water from the depths of the southern valley of the terrace to its vicinity. You can see this. Having different directions, these waterways provided a general picture of the southern part of the terrace. Also, regarding the location of the area, which is on the main courses of flood waters coming from the valley south of the terrace, a better understanding of its topographic change was gained. Along the outlet of the channels and the course carved out of the natural rocks, waterway number 1 built from large and small stones was gradually exposed. Evidently, this waterway directed the outflow from the outlet of the channels toward the southern area of the trass. This is the outlet, and this is the waterway number 1. Traces of 2 other waterways marked as number 2 and 3 on the photo were revealed at a distance of about 35 to 40 meters south of the outlet of the channels. These waterways made of big rocks as well as the regularly set small and medium-sized stones, extending eastward as far as the trench wall, but to the east ended abruptly without any traces of their continuation being identified. As excavation continued, part of another waterway, number 4, was unearthed in the southern half of the trench at a distance of 55 meters from the outlet of the channels. That part of the waterway, which had an approximate southeast to northwest orientation, was covered and so was different from the other identified waterways in this respect. Regarding the southern extension of waterway number 1, and based on some other evidence found in the trench, it can be guessed that it probably had a southward orientation, but considering the relatively disrupted structure of its final section, it is likely that the waterway terminated at that point. This point. That point, excuse me. Okay. Okay, regarding the southern extension of waterway number 1, and based on some other evidence found in the trench, it can be guessed that, I'm just repeating it, that it probably had a southeast orientation, but considering the relatively disrupted structure of its final section, it is likely that the waterway terminated at that point. Similar condition existed for western extensions of waterway number 2 and 3. At present, the starting point of waterways number 2 and 3 is not exactly known. However, their general direction shows that they probably originated from the inner depths of the valley south of the trass, and as it was said before, used to transfer seasonal or probably permanent waters of the valley to the vicinity of the trass parapet. Waterway number 4 is also likely to have functioned like channel 2 and 3. After examining the whole situation, the gradient of all 4 waterways and their sudden interruption, it was hypothesized that they were terminated if possible pool near the trass southern parapet. From this point, I will present the result of the season of excavation which we carried out in summer of 2014. And then we will reach to the final results, which is a combination of the result of 2012 and 2014. But this is a little more complicated. Let's please keep in your mind all of the details that I will say about the waterways which we discovered in this season. Okay. In addition to the structure found in the 2012 season discussed so far, the waterways of the Treasury building were excavated in summer 2014, during which new detail and facts about the overall form of Persepolis channels were discovered. Moreover, remarkable points concerning architectural episodes of the southern wall of the truss as well as the condition of its southern area were revealed. These results, together with those of the 2012 season, culminated in providing a better picture of the state and trend of change in this part during the academic period. Most of the Schmidt's excavation between the years 1935 and 1939 was aimed to unearthing the treasury building. In his book, Persepolis 1, he has fully discussed all of the stages of the building excavation with relevant details. From these, it results that the treasury building was constructed in 3 consecutive stages. You see the maps, the 3 stages of the building of treasury. The main original building of the treasury, the first stage, had a completely symmetrical plan set on an east to west axis. A relatively symmetrical network of surface waterways made of stones or carved out of natural rocks had been set up in the middle of it, as you see this photo. Ultimately, these waterways network lead to a hatch inside room number 82 of the treasury. Schmidt gave to all of the rooms of the treasury numbers, and the room number 82 is this one, which this hatch ends in this room. And from that spot terminated in the underground channels network. This hatch was unearthed at that time of the Schmidt excavation. However, it was still unclear how it was connected to the main networks of the underground channels. In fact, since Schmidt, no exploration has ever been made to find out where the mentioned hatch ends. Therefore, the majority of activities carried out during the 2014 season excavation were aimed to identify the condition of the waterways connected to the hatch of room 82 of the treasury. Excavations showed that 2 diagonal waterways existed beneath the hatch of room 82. As you see, here is a place of hatch, and these are 2 branches of underground channels that we will speak about this from now. The first one was an eastern waterway, which initially extended eastward, but after a 90 degrees turn diverted southward to join the main network of waterways. However, it was obstructed by a solid stone block at a point near to its junction with the channels network. The second was a waterway coming from beneath of the hatch of room 82 and running south in a straight line up to the southern truss parapet. After the completion of the excavation, the situation appeared as follows. The internal condition of the eastern waterway of the treasury revealed some remarkable points about its construction start, as well as the reason for its lack of functionality, its blocking, and its uselessness as a waterway. Considering the stone's junction of the eastern and southern channels at their contact point, exactly beneath the hatch of the room 82, it was clear that the construction of both waterways was related to the first building stage of the treasury, and without doubt they were constructed simultaneously. Apparently, after the construction of the initial and original part of the Eastern Waterway, other parts of this channel were constructed extending as far as the place where it connected to the main network. The initial part dated to the first stage of the building, while the additions are later. No definitive answer can be given to questions about the reason for the obstruction of the eastern waterway and when it happened. Nevertheless, according to some evidence, it seems that some miscalculation in construction of the channel caused the eastern waterway of the Treasury not to work, and so probably for safety reasons, it was decided to close off its connection with the main waterways network. Therefore, the course of the eastern waterway of the Treasury was closed by putting a huge stone block at the junction to the main network of the waterway. This is the such place of the eastern waterway of the Treasury. The obstruction of the eastern waterway means that the drainage of water flowing into the hatch of room 82 was released only via the southern channel of the Treasury. Excavation of the southern channel led to the identification of a newly found outlet at the end of this channel. This is the southern channel, and this is the newly outlet found in the end of this channel. Which in fact located below the southern parapet of the trans, the newly found outlet. We named this outlet previously unknown Treasury outlet. Apparently, this newfound outlet was a temporary construction made to drain water out of the first phase building of the Treasury only. However, when the eastern waterway was blocked, it became the main and only drainage outlet used until the end of Persepolis' lifetime. The long use of the southern channel of the Treasury and its outlet is not only proved by the obstruction of the eastern channel, but also by form and composition of the deposit inside of southern channel. At about 20 meters within the southern channel, a thick, distinct layer of brown soil mixed with lots of ash and charcoal pieces was found. It is hard to imagine that such a, this layer of the here, it is hard to imagine that such a huge mass of ash and charcoal entered the channel from courtyard of the first phase building of Treasury during the lifetime of Persepolis. Indeed, not only was the quantity of sediments type unusual, but they would also certainly have obstructed the waterway, thus causing a malfunction of the drainage, which certainly would have been required. Therefore, the obstruction of the waterway by sediments could have taken place only after the Treasury building ceased to be used. And this happened when Persepolis was captured by Alexander and his army, and according to the sources, set on fire. Also, Schmidt noticed traces of fire during his excavation of the building of Treasury. It is likely that following the fire in the year 330 BCE, the first heavy rain transferred light sediments consisting of ash and charcoal from the building surface into the hatch of room 82, causing a sudden obstruction of the large part of the southern waterway. After understanding of lengths of the Treasury outlet, we opened a trench next to the southern side of the truss wall in order to identify the exterior facing of this outlet of Treasury. This operation led us to discover new details about the southern wall of the truss. The first thing we found out was a double-phase construction of part of that wall. Following the removal of surface layers of debris and sediments, it soon became evident that after the first phase of construction of the truss wall, at a later stage, a buttress 3 meters in width was added in front of the main wall. The quality of stones employed in the second phase was poorer than that of the first phase. This was probably due to hastiness in the construction of the buttress or to the less important function, and less quality of this buttress. Presuming to follow the courses of the treasury outlet below the buttress, a thick layer of medium and large-grained rubble was exposed. Further down, we found a layer full of fine chips and stone and pebbles. This sequence of thick layer of rubble followed by pebble and stone chips continued almost regularly as far as the end of the trench. You see the section of the wall, and this is the opposite section in front of it. The layer of stones and rubble and pebbles. Finally, at the depth of 9.5 meters from the buttress top level, 2 of the 4 hatches of the treasury outlet were exposed. Due to the small size of the trench, the other 2 hatches were not unearthed. Calculation showed that the level of these hatches were about 7 meters lower than the level of main outlet of waterways located at the southeastern corner of the truss carpet. This means that the southern area of Persepolis Truss was a valley-like deep depression, and the treasury waterway outlet was connected to this deep cavity, and its water was drained into it. As mentioned before, the excavation results of the 2012 season showed that waterways identified in the southern area of the terrace probably run into the spots created close to the southern parapet of the truss, exactly where the treasury outlet is located. As we spoke before, these are the channels of the French 2012 season. Therefore, there is almost no doubt the existence of a pool area in the vicinity of southern wall of the truss. The construction of the buttress in front of the southern wall of the truss was aimed to consolidating the truss wall at that spot. It is likely the part of the truss wall foundation located near the pool was at risk, and this was the factor which prompted Achaemenid architects to build the buttress. It is likely that the huge pile of rubble in front of the buttress also served as a filter between the pool and the body of the buttress. Perhaps the water accumulated in the pool could finally somehow find its way into the compound of building in the southern area of Persepolis and was probably used to irrigate gardens in this area. Grazie, thank you so much.
There are questions. Thank you, Professor Asadi. And of course, this was a presentation on one of the most famous and I would say sensitive spots of the site, because with the Abadana, the treasury was the heart of the original.
This photo to say that finally we have succeeded to solve the problem of gathering water in the and now it's working. Today the drainage of the Persepolis Trust is like the academic period, and we used of that system for the meaning of the design.
I was asking, as this was the art of Darius the first, and we know that even more than 1,000 people used to work into the treasury, and that there were gold and silver shining. These are the Greek sources saying on these details. So I was wondering if someone could enter the treasury from the...
When we were working, because I just...
you don't find gold.
I just tell you some, I just presented here 2 seasons of our excavations. Now we did actually 3 seasons. But the last season was, we did it last year, and it was in other parts of the channels. So, because these 2 seasons, the results were connected, completed each other, just presented as one lecture. But when we were working in the channels in these 3 seasons, they really, the members of excavation, they were looking if something was, they just looking for if there was something in the channels, and they were thinking maybe somebody in a field and Alexander came there. Yes. But we know according to the sources that Alexander, when he came to Persepolis, he burned first the city of Parsa, not the Persepolis Trust itself. He stayed 2 months here, and they just make quite empty the palaces from every precious things. So because of this, Persepolis is rich in architecture, but not rich in findings. Even as it says that
it is where the work of Alexander, that they have taken everything from, because they say that they have taken everything from the Amadana and the treasury.
Yes, but in third season we found I can say a brass. It's maybe the only precious that we found. But nothing else.
Because we know from the release that they used to collect gifts from everywhere.
Yes.
Darius was waiting for this. So.
I don't know which one, but I think here there is Sicilian. It says that Parsa was the richest city of the world, and truly, buildings and the treasury was full of the many things. But so when we gather something, finally we must leave it.
So thank you for this really important excavation with very interesting results from this.
Thank you so much.
For system that is always a very delicate point about this monumental architecture. Otherwise, it cannot work. So.
Thank you so much, Gersia, for giving me this opportunity for presenting my work in the Museum of Sapienza University. And not Sapienza, but we say in Iran that Persepolis was built 2 times. Once by Darius and second time by Italian restorators, because if I don't know, you know, a couple, wife and and his wife, they were working 15 years before revolution of Iran in Persepolis, and they really did a great job. Great work for reconstructing the Persepolis palaces, and if we have a very clean site, very good site, it's because of their work also. And this was our duty to open this course because we had a really, very bad situation in the rainy season. So we just did our work, but finally we also some new structures, as I showed you, these waterways and so on.
And I just wanted to ask another thing that concerning the pool. But if I understood well,
Yeah.
the archaeologists, they have dumped into the area of the pool. They usually do this in any of these monumental complexes in the Middle East. If they find a pool, they say, okay, is this the case?
No.
You are not exactly. Not you, I mean, the one before you.
Maybe.
You also, but you weren't top.
But now we just, here in this area of pool is quite, I told you, it's because of the previous excavation soils, is like a mound. They must to remove these soils and to understand what was really the topographical situation of that area, southern area of Persepolis. But this is important because more or less now we know why Darius chose this place for making the truss. Because maybe in that time there was some permanent springs in the southern and northern area of Persepolis truss, which they just, because of these springs, it was beautiful and maybe there was enough water, and so they just, because there are many questions why they are used in Iran. People ask why they are used to chose these, and if it was a secret place or something else done. But it's, in my idea, it was because there was some good natural sources. I mean, there was water and there was a good situation for making the truss. It was just simply because of this, nothing else. Excuse me for speaking.
No, so much. Thank you very much.